Final Reckoning is more than another Mission Impossible film. It's a compilation of some of the wildest behind-the-scenes moments the franchise has ever produced. In this video, we break down the most insane facts, dangerous stunts, production chaos, and hidden details you never knew about Tom Cruise's final mission. This one goes way beyond anything before. 1. Tom Cruise set a Guinness World Record for a flaming parachute stunt. Tom Cruise has always treated danger like a co-star, but Final Reckoning pushed him into territory even Hollywood considers unthinkable. He performed 16 flaming parachute jumps in real skydiving conditions with a fuel-soaked canopy ignited mid-air and collapsing behind him as he free fell. Each jump required split-second timing to deploy the backup chute before the burning fabric disintegrated. Guinness officials verified the stunt as a world first. Crew members later admitted their hearts stopped before every jump. This already sounds impossible, yet the next stunt pushed him even further into the sky. 2. Cruise hung from a biplane mid-flight. Without a stunt double. Tom Cruise has spent decades hanging off impossible heights, but Final Reckoning took things further. For one signature stunt, he clung to the wing of a real vintage biplane at full altitude, with freezing winds slamming into him and no CGI safety net. He had to leap from one moving aircraft to another, timing his grip and body position perfectly, while the pilot held a razor-precise angle. A single slip meant catastrophic injury, and this wasn't even the most dangerous part of filming. Yet even this was only the start, because the locations themselves became part of the danger. 3. Filming spanned multiple extreme global locations. Final Reckoning was not satisfied with standard travel schedules. The crew jumped from the Arctic chill of Svalbard to the scorching weather of South Africa, then into dense urban heat in Malta. Every location created new problems. In Svalbard, cameras froze and batteries died within minutes. In Malta, the sun caused lens glare so intense that entire shots had to be rebuilt. In South Africa, dust storms disrupted continuity. The team even had to build heated shelters for equipment and cooling tents for the actors because the temperature shifts were so extreme. These unpredictable environments stretched both budget and endurance. And speaking of the budget, the next point shows exactly how massive this film really became. 4. The movie's budget reached around $400 million. Final Reckoning became one of the highest budget action films ever produced, reaching the $400 million mark. A significant portion went to location logistics, extreme stunt engineering, aerial rigging, and insurance coverage. Several sequences ate through millions because they required dozens of test builds before filming even started. The production shutdowns created by strikes also inflated the budget. Yet, Paramount believed the film would rely on global momentum and Cruise's dedication to stunts that no other franchise could replicate. This financial gamble made Final Reckoning a monumental blockbuster before audiences even saw a trailer. But the financial chaos only made the next obstacle even more dramatic. 5. Filming was interrupted by industry strikes. The 2023 industry strikes hit the production at full speed. Shooting had begun in 2022, only for the cast to be forced home for months due to labor shutdowns. The crew lost sets, schedules, and entire rented locations because the contracts expired mid-strike. When filming resumed in 2024, several sequences had to be rewritten because certain locations were no longer available. This stop and restart cycle reshaped the tone of the movie and made the film significantly harder to complete. And just when schedules stabilized, the story itself went through a major shift. 6. The original subtitle was dropped Mission Impossible Dead. Reckoning Part 2 was the initial title, planned as a direct continuation of Part 1. However, as the script evolved and the emotional tone shifted, the studio and director decided to rename it to The Final Reckoning. This gave the movie space to stand alone as Ethan Hunt's last mission. It was a symbolic reset of the franchise. The crew reported that this change brought fresh energy to the narrative and helped clarify Hunt's emotional arc. But while script changes mattered, Cruise was busy doing something far more terrifying. 7. Tom Cruise performed wing walking at high speed. Wing walking has been considered one of the most dangerous air stunts ever attempted. Cruise did it at high velocity with nothing but a harness and handholds. The plane reached speeds that made it nearly impossible to breathe comfortably. At one point, Cruise experienced physical exhaustion and had to crawl back into the cockpit before the aircraft ran out of fuel. Crew members later revealed that even Trained stunt performers were shocked he attempted it repeatedly, and the film's tone shift became even clearer when the usual franchise tradition suddenly vanished. 8. The opening briefing tradition was abandoned. For the first time since 1996, Ethan Hunt does not receive the classic mission briefing that self-destructs afterward. This creative choice signaled a darker tone. Rather than presenting Hunt with a directive, the film begins with him already in crisis, making choices without IMF guidance. Fans found this change bold because it broke a pattern that had defined the entire franchise. But the next detail struck even harder because it turned Ethan Hunt into something entirely new. 9. Cruise's age is explicitly part of the movie context. Ethan Hunt is revealed to be 60 years old, and the story uses his age to add weight to his decisions. Rather than hiding it, the script leans into it. Hunt's endurance, trauma, regrets, and loyalty all play differently when audiences see him as someone reaching the end of a lifetime of missions, and the final fact in this section shows how committed the cast remained, even under intense conditions. 10. Hayley Atwell shot a fight scene. While pregnant Hayley Atwell filmed key close combat scenes while 8.5 months pregnant, the choreography team restructured movements to protect her while still keeping the action believable. She performed striking and blocking sequences with modified timing and protective gear. Despite the risks and exhaustion, her scene became one of the film's standout moments. 11. Tom Cruise trained for oxygen deprivation. Tom Cruise is known for pushing limits, but Final Reckoning forced him into an entirely new kind of danger. For scenes with brutal wind pressure and almost no breathable air, he trained in controlled oxygen deprivation, learning fighter pilot breathing cycles to avoid blacking out at high speed. Specialists monitored every session because one mistake meant instant loss of consciousness. Cruise refused shortcuts and mastered it for realism, and while he fought to stay conscious, the next threat brought a completely different danger. 12. The film features a dangerous rogue AI villain. The villain of Final Reckoning is not human at all, but a sleepless artificial intelligence called the Entity. Designed from real cybersecurity fears, it infiltrates global systems, rewrites data instantly, and erases Ethan Hunt from official records. Its lack of emotion makes it terrifying because there is nothing to intimidate or negotiate with. Fans called it the most unsettling villain in the series. If this caught your attention even a little, tap subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. But physical danger returned the moment real military power joined the production. 13. Real naval military assets were used in filming. To raise authenticity, the film used real military equipment provided by the United States Department of Defense. The USS George H.W. Bush aircraft carrier appears in several major sequences, and Osprey aircraft were flown specifically for production. These assets required intense coordination because filming on an active naval vessel includes strict safety protocols. Actors boarded through controlled access points, cameras needed special clearance, and filming windows were only minutes long to avoid disrupting operations. This gave the movie a scale that studios cannot replicate with CGI, and the combination of real machinery and long-running relationships brought back familiar faces in shocking ways. 14. Old allies return in unexpected ways. Ving Rhames and Simon Pegg return as Luther and Benji, grounding Ethan Hunt with a sense of loyalty built over decades. Their scenes tie emotional threads from earlier films into the story. New characters join them, creating tension in the IMF team as old loyalties clash with new missions. Fans appreciated that the film honors legacy relationships without letting nostalgia overshadow the stakes. This balance between old and new becomes crucial as the story heads into darker territory. And that narrative shift feels even harsher when you learn where many scenes were filmed. 15. Some scenes were filmed in sub-zero Arctic conditions. Several sequences were shot in the Arctic archipelago of Svalbard, where temperatures plunged to nearly -40 degrees. Crew members wore thermal boots, hand warmers, and heated masks to avoid frostbite. Cameras had to be insulated in thick protective housings because lenses froze within minutes. Actors performed choreography on ice-covered rock surfaces with winds so sharp they cut across their faces like sand. The cold created real exhaustion that translated directly onto screen, making the danger feel authentic. But cold weather was nothing compared to the shock that hit early test screenings. 16. An early audience near heart attack. Moment happened at screenings director Christopher McQuarrie revealed that during a test screening, one viewer experienced such an intense adrenaline spike during a major action sequence that the crew had to pause the session and provide assistance. The moment involved rapid cuts, high sound pressure, and a stunt that pushed tension to the edge. This incident convinced the team to slightly adjust the sound mix for wider audiences. It became a legend among editors who said they had never seen a reaction that extreme. And if the audience reaction was intense, the next point proves just how long Ethan Hunt's journey has been. 17. The film marks nearly 3 decades of Ethan Hunt. Tom Cruise debuted as Ethan Hunt in 1996. Final Reckoning arrives almost 30 years later, making it one of the longest, continuous portrayals of a single action hero in cinema history. This gives the film a sense of finality and emotional weight, especially as the script directly addresses Hunt's lifetime of sacrifice and the toll of his missions. It is not just another chapter. It is a reflection on the cost of duty and the end of a legacy. But the weight of that legacy did not stop the film from trimming what did not work. 18. At least one major scene was cut in post-production. A large-scale underwater submarine escape sequence was fully filmed with rotating rigs, scuba-trained actors, and high-pressure water tanks. The sequence took weeks to shoot and required complex stabilization gimbals. However, during editing, the director realized it slowed the pacing of the final act. Despite the cost and effort, the entire scene was cut. Crew members said deleting it was painful because the visuals were some of the most difficult they had ever created. And just when the editing battles ended, a symbolic timing added one last twist. 19. The film's release happened around Tom Cruise's birthday. Final Reckoning released only a month before Cruise turned 63. The timing unintentionally highlighted his unmatched longevity in action cinema. Cast members joked that he was performing stunts at an age when most actors shift to voice roles in memoirs. Instead, he jumped from aircraft, climbed structures, and trained like a professional athlete. This timing became a fitting celebration of his career. And if the timing was emotional, the runtime itself delivered one final surprise. 20. It is one of the longest films in the franchise Final Reckoning clocks, in at approximately 2 hours and 49 minutes, making it one of the longest Mission Impossible entries ever released. The extended runtime allowed for deep emotional development, expanded espionage threads, and several long-form stunt sequences that could not be rushed. Fans viewed the length as a final gift, giving Ethan Hunt the scale and closure his story deserved.